my guest is the one and only Kate Seger. Is it
Seger?
Yeah, Seger. Yeah.
Surprisingly, it's Seger.
No, look at my name, right? Pentelloresco, like Pen. It's like Toleresco. It's Pentelloresco. So I totally understand. It's a common thing. Probably fuels some people sometimes when you say it and people try to spell it. I could imagine that. It's like, hey, this is how you spell it, or something like that.
Yeah, I just say Seger if I know they have to spell it, because otherwise I know they'll spell it with an A.
Yeah, it's like Kim Seger or Kim. So how's life treating you today?
It's good. Yeah, my book releases in like a week, which is awesome.
That's awesome.
And I actually got the pre-order into Kindle like a week ago, so
yeah,
I'm not down to the wire. Like, oh my god, they're going to cancel my pre-orders forever.
No, actually, you know what? I will say this for Amazon: if I had an issue with getting my one pre-order in on time, and they're like, "Well, we can't do it. It's like expensive." Like, look, my computer legitimately broke, so I couldn't actually put it up. So could I get it? And I explained, it's like, this would happen. I had to go get it repaired. Can I get it repaired? To which they said, "Yeah, sure." Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure. Like, yeah. And they gave me a moratorium on it. Now, if it happens again, and I ain't going to get that moratorium, but I will say that for them.
Yeah.
They do understand shit happens as long as you as long as you explain it. So
yeah, I've gotten to that point where there's like 5 hours left and there's something wrong with, like, I don't know, some weird thing. And I'm like, whatever, just put it through the way it is. I'll fix it later.
I can fix it. It's good. No, I'm going to be putting up my pre-order in about a week for my book, because I'm doing it. Mine's going to be released in November, so I'm going to start promoting it like crazy in September. So this week I'm doing like 2 important things, and then next week I'll figure out where I go from here. But in general, right? It's exciting when you get your book kind of ready to go and you're launching, and you like get these like butterflies that you don't normally get, and you're like, is this gonna be good? Is people gonna like it?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, no, it happens all the time.
How many typos slip through after 9 people reading it? There's always one, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. Well, there's always going to be that. There's always going to be like that mistake. I remember one time I was looking at like a proof, and like here's the thing: it's not the mistakes when you like read like in the final version that you miss that gets you. It's when everybody misses the same mistake. It's just for whatever reason it just slips right through the cracks.
Exactly. They're like immortal. It won't go away.
Like, yes. Well, the beautiful thing about digital stuff, like doing digital stuff, is you can change it. But that first impression, why is the word literary instead of literary? And you're like, and everybody missed it. Like everybody misses it. You're like,
Yep.
There's this,
and it's always something ridiculous where you're like, how?
There was this one of those. One of my favorite commercials from way back in the day. It's this old guy. He's painting a football field, right? He's just about done. He's finished. He's like, nice job, but who are the chefs? Chefs. He looks. Oh, great, googly moogly, because he forgot the I. Right? Yep. And you look at that and you're saying to yourself, yeah, like that happens. Like it legitimately happens. You get caught up in the work and you're like, I miss shit. It's like, oh.
And 5 other people missed it too.
The thing is, if it comes, this is one of the hardest things about proofing, is if it looks natural. Like the natural stuff, like those small errors, like okay, yeah, like that's fine, because English is such a fucked up language. Because English is just such a wonderfully fucked up language, right? You have this ability to like, see that. How do I put this? So it's like words like to and dear and like words that are correct in some cases but are not correct in other cases, or phonetically the word's similar. So when you read it in your head and you're reading it out loud, you don't catch it.
You gloss right over it. Yep.
Right.
I'm an editor by trade, so it happens to me constantly. I have to.
It's everybody, right? Everybody does it. Like one of the best suggestions I ever had about looking at proofing is actually reading a book backwards. It's like, it's actually brilliant because you don't get caught in this. Because the other part of it too is you get caught.
You're in the story.
You get caught. You get everybody does, like if it's really, really good, and you know it's really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
People are reading it and people are liking it, and you're like, holy shit, this is good, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, that's a great thing, right? That's an absolutely great and wonderful thing. And you know, that's a big part of it too. So you get caught up. You're not looking as carefully anymore because
you're
oh,
engrossed.
yeah, you're immersed.
Yep.
So, and it happens. I mean, that's a great problem to have. Your story is immersive, but you know what? Who are the chefs? Wait, what chefs? It happens to us all, right? I mean,
Yep.
it's such a human thing. But I mean,
it's also not the end of the world.
No, it's not. Well, it's not the end of the world. Hey, listen. Today in today's culture, see, you should own. Not only do you own your mistake, you make a T-shirt out of it and sell it. I did it. I'm with the chefs. Oh crap! I mean, Chiefs. Yeah. No one will notice. Right?
I call them collector's editions. If people get the books and I find a typo later, I'm like, well, you have like the collector's edition. It's the one with the mistakes in it.
Right. But like I said, own your T-shirts. That's just how I would do it. But hey, that's just me, and that's just how the world works, right? I mean, mistakes are part of life. Like that's, and you know, I have come to and I say this in not like the worst way. I just say it in the best way. Hey, I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna make a zillion mistakes in this life. Better to make mistakes with the right intentions and just being honest in your mistakes. Be honest, right? If you're honest about your mistakes, your conscience is clear. Even if it's no matter how epically bad the mistake is, your conscience is at least clear, right? Yeah. So it's one of those things where, you know, it's one of those things where, you know,
you do the best you can.
Yeah. That's it. And that's all you can. That's all any of us can do. All any of us can do.
Yeah.
Right. You know, that's humanity in a nutshell, right?
Absolutely.
So you write books. I imagine you read a lot of books too.
A lot. Especially since I'm an editor. So
yeah.
It's unfortunate that like now I feel like I don't get to read books that I want to read for fun because I've been reading all day, and I'm like, but I listen to a lot of audiobooks because I can still listen. But after working all day, I'm like, I don't want to look at any more words today.
No, I mean, that's the downside when you actually start doing editing is you're like you still will read some books for enjoyment, but they're like rare treasures.
It's just less. Exactly. The ones I really, really am like, oh, I have to read this.
Well, like one of my favorite, like I'll admit this, I'm a sucker for the Kate Daniels role for Alana Andrews. I will find ways to read that, even when I'm writing and editing, and I will find ways.
Yep.
That's the fun shit. That's the good shit. Like, right. I don't need great stuff. I just need good stuff, you know?
Yep. The stuff that like pulls you in. Yep. Whatever that may be.
Yeah, it's me. I mean, maybe for you, it's I don't know, Alice in Wonderland or
Sarah J. Maas.
Sarah J. Maas is good. Like honestly, do you know? I think the really cool thing about her is she's so old school. Like she feels like an old school fantasy author, right? Yeah. Just a little bit more refined. She gets emotional connection. Like I heart David Eddings. I really, really do. Like old school David Eddings. But the problem with David Eddings is he does humor very well. Right? But if you look at everything else he kind of does, like you don't get that same click. Like he's good. I'm not knocking David Eddings, trust me, or David and Thea Eddings to be specific. Not knocking them at all. But if you're looking for emotional gravitas and connection, their work in comparison to Maas isn't the same. But Maas is in that vein. Like her characters are just variants of a older style that like adult publishing abandoned to I'll say the late 90s, early 2000s. Right? Like Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time because it was big, and Terry Goodkind.
Love Robert Jordan.
Because they were big. But if you were looking at other fantasy worlds, they were trying different things because they were looking for what that next voice, that next.
Mm-hmm. The dominant, yeah.
Yeah, they were looking for that, and you could see that. Because sometimes, but the cool thing about like looking at like publishing today, like it doesn't matter what angle of publishing is, there's niches for everybody, right? So like if I look at someone like Michael Sullivan, he does these great fantasy books today that are very much reminiscent of Eddings, Weiss, Tad Williams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, they're doing like that. He's doing that old school style, but it's not done being marketed to just a traditional audience. It's being marketed to,
Yeah, that's the art. The audience is a different. Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like the audience has evolved, but like so, and like when you look at traditional fantasy, like Maz, she's actually a little combination of young women and people that are nostalgic to read those epic fantasy worlds from the day. She does some really good stuff.
My friends make fun of me. They like say I'm reading like fairy porn meant for teenagers, and I'm like, if you read it, you would actually realize that it's really good. Like,
you know what?
It's not fairy porn.
I still read Dr. Seuss. Screw you guys.
There you go. No, I really like young adult fantasy. I like Laini Taylor, so
she is brilliant. Like she is absolutely brilliant. Her prose is so vivid. She reminds the closest thing I can compare her to in the adult realm is Jacqueline Carey. That's the closest thing, and they're not quite the same, but that's still that kind of they kind of have the same. They kind of do magic in almost the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's that mythical, magical, right? Their metas are different, but how they convey their magic is very similar,
mm-hmm.
and their characters. Holy crap! So like Phaedra and Jacqueline Carey is such an interesting character, but I forget her name. Her name. The main character of Gods and Monsters, and I can't remember her name, and it's driving me crazy right now because it's one that's really like
blue hair. Yeah,
I love her.
Like, what's her name?
What's her name? Yeah,
I've read it in so long, but
but that's what Laini does. Like she does like that.
And then Strange the Dreamer is like completely different, but it still has that same vibe to it. I
haven't read Strange the Dreamer yet. I currently have it in a storage locker in Calgary, Alberta.
It's really good. I actually like Daughter of Smoke and Bone and that series, Gods and Monsters, better, but it's still really good.
Well, Daughter of Smoke and Bone is amazing. It's like the concept is just such, again. I read comic books. I read adult stuff. I read kids stuff. I don't care. Like
I'm the same way.
Yeah,
if it draws me, I'll read it.
Well, no,
make fun of me, but
like what I've found as I get older is genre doesn't really matter that much. You can write a story about a jar of dirt. It doesn't really freaking matter. What matters is hold on a sec here. Boom, boom. So that way I can see comments if they happen. That way, what matters in a great story in a story isn't so much that right isn't so much about like the trappings. The trappings don't really matter. It's that's what people don't connect to that. What people connect to, like we've gotten to the point where we realize really the heart of every story, ironically, is the heart of the story. What is it really all about?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's and everything else is just the trimmings.
Yeah, everything else is just trimming. Like I don't like, and especially as you learn to edit and to like show care, right? And you start looking at like when you look at how the sausage is made, everyone, right? It's one of those things where you just look at it, go, okay, not much of this sausage. Now, some of the sausage is cool. I love the sprinkles. I don't know why there's sprinkles here, but I like it, right? I love the ideas, right? But what it comes right down to is it has nothing to do with it literally has nothing to do with the story, which is what's the story? I'm doing an Alice in Wonderland Greek mythology master, but if I were to break the story down into one sentence, it's really about overcoming fear.
Yep.
Right. That's what it is, right? So, which I feel is a very good message right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear going around. Absolutely.
Right. It's a very good message right now. And I look at it and go, I look at it and go like, this is what, but that's what my story is about. So everything I'm doing is about dealing with fear and understanding fear. So her monsters, and also having fun, like, but my meta story is a little bit of Jason and the Argonauts and Hercules, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how fun it is to write 100-headed dragon that constantly is talking to itself all the time.
That does sound fun. I'm writing currently from, this is for another thing, but it's all from the perspective of the cat, like the family cat who keeps sabotaging the 30-year-old virgin of love life, and just watching my cat walk around and thinking like, what is he thinking right now? And then trying to write like what I think is going on in his head is like super fun, because the cat is such a dick. And it's like, this is, if my cat were a person, if my cat could communicate, this character would be the cat. So that's why I decided to write from the cat's perspective, because
cats can be assholes. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
they legitimately
and
can.
They're cats, so they're allowed to get away with it.
Oh, even, you know what? Honestly, everybody's allowed to get away with it. The truth of the matter, like, if we're going to be really honest about that, I find that we all, like, because there's a little bit of that, what I call irrepressible rascal and an asshole, right? It's when they're irredeemably an asshole that you have a problem. But no one, like, if I'm too nice or too kind or too sweet or too this or too, you're not going to respect me, because you're going to be like let's be honest, like, I could walk on this guy.
Plus, sometimes it's fun and funny when people are like sarcastic and have a dry sense of humor, you know.
Well, that's just it. Like that, especially if you had siblings. If you have siblings, there's a little perverse pleasure in just pushing that, like twisting that knife in just a little bit.
Pushing the buttons.
Yeah.
I would say that also applies to spouses, but I don't know.
Absolutely, no. See, but that's, again, people think of, like, the nature of love as being on, like, again, you don't mistreat people. You don't push boundaries that will actually traumatize someone. But if you know that there's like a little button here and a little button there and a little button there that you can touch and push and play with, right? It's knowing when to be gentle, and it's knowing when where you can be, don't have to be gentle, right?
Sensing the situation,
Yeah, it really is. Like, that's what it comes down to.
Yep,
and this is true. So we all appreciate, because we all have this inner little rebel that just doesn't really want to play by any rules, because rules are stupid. And there's a little bit like,
that's why I quit my day job. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to go freelance and be my own boss.
I'm in this really odd spot. Is like, I can make money as a freelancer, but I haven't gotten to the consistent money yet as a freelancer. Like, I'm not quite sure how I'm paying my bills next month, right this minute, like right this very minute. But on the same token, it's 7 days. It's entirely possible I figure out a way to do it in 7 days.
Yep.
Right. Totally. Then again, maybe I don't. And then maybe I have to figure out something, like, what bank I'm going to rob. I'm just saying, like, it's just one of those things, like, but the point is, right, the point of getting to that is, you all come to this conclusion that rules suck, and I don't need to go through that. There are things in life you just do not need in your life. Yep. And once you realize that those things are, right, I don't need much in my life. I just want to do what I love, be with people I love, and
have shelter, and
What's it? I don't care about anything else, because it doesn't, like, most of anything else doesn't matter. I don't care how you do it. Are you happy? Cool. I don't care, right? I mean, and not like because that's it. It's not my business to care, right? My business is just the same thing. And again, that's where that little bit of, like, that inner rebel comes in, because, like, well, this is what I want. And sometimes the world says, well, you got to play by the rules. And then as you get older, you realize, no, I actually don't.
Yeah.
I actually
cut my hair off with kitchen shears in the bathroom the other day because I was hot. So
Pardon?
I cut my hair off with kitchen shears in my bathroom the other day because I was hot. I was like, I'm not spending $200 to go to the hairdresser. I'm just going to do it. And
yeah. And
it's not perfect,
listen, if it had really screwed up epically, and you'd have no hair on this would have been a very different interview. So, like, what happened to your hair? You'd be like, well, there's this thing. I thought I was so good and I could cut it
I
myself.
pulled a Britney Spears. And,
I went nuts. I went nuts for one day. It was so good.
Yep.
It's okay. Everybody's crazy. I don't know what normal is anymore. I don't, because
You don't need to.
well, I think normal. If there is truly a normal, it's hell. That's the only thing I can think of. It would have like the cheesiest elevator music ever, like the
Yep.
absolute cheesiest elevator music ever, and you'd be doing something completely monotonous. You'd be
Small
like,
talk about
yeah,
nothing.
that's like, that sounds like hell to me,
Yeah.
right?
That's terrible. It's the worst.
Yeah, that's it, right?
Yep.
And that would be hell. Like, you would have lame ass elevator music the whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be
No,
like,
this is no fun.
no, it's the same fun at all. I play video games. Like I said, I am still 12. I'm very okay with my 12-year-oldness. And so there's this one like level in Devil May Cry. Right, it's right towards the end of the game. He's fought in this heart of this one of the most evilest places ever. Right, and there's a pause going to the very top floor of this place. Just going up, there's elevator music. Right, so he had just fought in demons, slaying things with axes and all that shit. Right,
Mm-hmm.
like, and it goes, oh my god, this is hell. This is absolute hell. And then you get out of there, and then you hear the heavy metal music for the video game, and all the Easter roundabout. There we go. I know how to deal with this. Right? So I like, life's a weird roller coaster. It just is. Like we go down this magic crazy path, and all kinds of things can happen, and people can do and say and become whoever they're going to become, and for the most part, most of us are just passengers on the ride, and that's totally fine, right? But you realize, again, as you get older, it's like, I may not control where the big roller coaster is ultimately going, but I can control like which car I'm in.
Yeah, where I'm sitting. Do I want to be in the front or the back?
And maybe I'll just jump off because I really don't care, right? All right, and that's a really and that's the thing. Like, it's like, I don't need to control the roller coaster. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do what I damn well please. That's what it comes right down to. It's like, I'm just going to do what I damn well please, and
Yep.
I'm going to, and I'll live with it, right? That's all you can do.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah.
Whatever the consequences are, they are, and it is what it
called
is.
being an adult.
Yep, adulting.
That's
Yay, adulting.
Who knew, right? Who knew? But like I said, when you come right down to it, when you come absolutely right down to it, right, and that's just it. Like, that's why we like assholes. When you come, like, it's not, we aren't built to conform to anything for an extended period of time. We're at our best when we have a little bit of that part of us. It's like, I don't have to cooperate.
Yeah.
And expressing, and again, it's not, it's when it's irredeemable, like when it's that douchebag boyfriend or girlfriend that doesn't really give a shit about you, like, that's an irredeemable.
That's different, yeah.
That's irredeemable, and you probably should stay away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But that part where you see, it's like, dude, I had a buddy. So we were going to another city, like we were just heading there, and this guy was riding him, trying to get him to speed up. So what he did, be a complete total douchebag, was when the guy couldn't pass him legally, he slowed right down on purpose. Right, when the lines changed, so he couldn't actually pass them, and then when the lines got faster, he sped right up. There were moments so the guy couldn't pass him.
Yeah.
Right, guy couldn't pass him, so he did this for like 10 Canada United, like 10 kilometers. Like, he did this. It was funny. Guy finally.
I feel like you could get shot doing that nowadays.
Well, but guy started it. He rode him.
Yeah,
he
it's
true.
He
was an asshole to begin with, so he just returned it in kind, right? So no, you don't do that. You don't, like, no, on an American highway, you don't do that. In America, again, on an American highway, there's some quiet rules. If you don't want to be bullied, go in these two lanes. Go at your pace there. No one's going to say shit. right? If you're on these 2 lanes, you're driving with the rest of us motherfuckers. Because I've seen it. The cop will come, and if you're not cooperating with the flow of traffic, they're going to pull the disruptor.
Yeah.
It's like, you're the one getting the ticket. It's like, what about them? They're all like, they're going on flow. I don't care about that. I care about you because you're the one that's going to fuck this up. That's how it works. If you have a problem, but these 2 lanes, if they try to ride you, we'll deal with them there. But go in those lanes.
Don't be in the fast lane. Yep. I'm a New Yorker, so I know all about aggressive driving.
Yeah. Oh, you guys are funny. You will swear at each other. Like literally the concrete will like crack. It's like you'll swear that much. But you won't come to blows. It's one of those weird things I've seen. It's like you will tell each other off 10,000 different ways, and then you'll go back in the car and drive.
I did see somebody punch someone over a parking lot in CVS the day before Christmas one time, though, over a parking place.
Oh.
It actually came to blows, and I was like, wow, is this really happening on Christmas Eve? But that guy was obviously the kind of jerk we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Irredeemable.
The weirdest thing I saw, I actually saw a zombie apocalypse in Calgary, Alberta. And this is what I mean. This is what I mean by this, okay? So we have a C-train system in Calgary, and that morning there was problems with the C-train system, so no one could get to work downtown. They were going to fix the train eventually, but they were sending buses down. I had never seen a bus driver so scared for his life because he was rushed by all these guys in business suits trying desperately to get to work on time. They actually tipped the bus. They didn't tip it over, but they actually tipped it with him inside. They were so desperate to get in. I was like, so that's what a zombie apocalypse is going to look like. I watched that. I was like, you want to get on that bus? No. They can have it. I don't want it. I'm not going to fight. Like they just want to go down. Like, it was rainy too. It was a rainy day. And I was just watching. Nothing like watching thousands of well-dressed people lose their shit. Like, because the train, it was like, the zombie apocalypse are going to be the business sectors of your city. Just warning. There's a big, actually, that is probably true. They are the biggest zombies of them all. Probably.
It makes sense.
That's why you quit, though, right? You're saying,
yeah, exactly.
I don't want to be a zombie anymore. I'm going to be free. Kind of, sort of.
Now I can eat lunch and go in the pool if I want. I don't have to be on buses and trains and
you can work. You don't have to deal with any of that stuff. If you want to work in the pool, I'm not saying that's what you would do in the pool, but if you wanted to, you could.
Yeah, I actually do write in the hot tub a lot. We don't have an actual pool. I have to go elsewhere to go to the pool, but we have a hot tub, and I'll just turn the jets off and hang out in there. And I write on my phone a lot, which people think is weird, but I do it anyway. I just open Google Docs on my phone, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna chill here and hope this doesn't fall in the water. Right? Just hasn't fallen in yet.
The only thing is just don't fall asleep. If I fall asleep, we're done. But I'm insanely jealous. Just a little bit insanely jealous right now. I mean.
It's just one of those $250 Intex ones. Best $250 I ever spent.
Yeah. Little things, man. Little things matter. Little things matter. That's just how it goes. So I imagine then for you, your day job's editing. Primarily, you edit as a day job, and you write for yourself, and you're kind of just building your empire slowly that way. I imagine that's how this is working for you.
Yeah, editing is what pays my bills, basically. And writing is what I hope will one day pay my bills. But in the meantime, I kind of try to balance the two.
Yeah.
But I love editing, so it's not like it's... Sometimes, I mean, there's those jobs that I'm like, this person is a sadistic asshole and is rude and mean and unpleasant, and I don't want to deal with them anymore. Most people are really cool, and I like reading books and trying to make them better. So
it depends. Like you know what I mean? Like there's a point with here's the deal. You can be a rude asshole to me, but you're gonna pay me more money. Like that's how I look at it. There's an asshole tax.
If you want me to revise it 3 times because you told me you wanted all the word elves capitalized, and then you change your mind and you want them lowercase, I'm not going to go through and do that. You can go, you can do it yourself, or you can pay me more money to go back through.
You know what? At that point, I'll do it. Here's the price.
Yeah, exactly. I'll do it the first time, and then if you don't like it, you have to pay me for me to redo it. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just that person. I have been that person the whole time.
Yep.
So, what was the book that made you go, I'm in, I want to write?
I started writing when I was really little. And the first, like, I was the kid who had a notebook, like, at the dinner table when I was, like, 5. And my mom was like, stop. You cannot write in a notebook. We're eating dinner. But so the first, like, real book I ever read, I stole The Stand from my dad's bookshelf when I was, like, 10. And my parents, once they caught me reading it, were like, you shouldn't read this. This is too old for you. But I was already 3/4 of the way done, so they let me finish. So from that point on, I realized I didn't like kids' books anymore. I wanted to read, like, grown-up books. And, yeah, it's The Stand and Gone with the Wind were, like, the first 2 books that impacted me that I was like, I want to create worlds like this. I'm really into, like, world building and, like, you know, creating a different... I'm not, like, I don't write contemporary romance because I don't want to write where I am right now. Like, the world is what it is. I like writing fantasy. I mostly write fantasy and a little bit of, like, dystopian. I have a zombie apocalypse serial on Vela. And yeah, my new book is, like, Greek myths retold from female perspectives, because I feel like Greek myths were kind of patriarchal in their initial representations. So...
they're interesting. Like, I've been reading them a lot because of, again, I mashed up Alice in Wonderland with Greek mythology. Mm-hmm. Alice is Pandora. It works incredibly well.
It sounds really cool.
Yeah, and but I'm also looking at other characters in Greek mythology that are really, really interesting. Medusa is, so the way this is she's going from world to world finding pieces of Wonderland, which had scattered when she opened Pandora's box. And then when she finds a piece of Wonderland, she remembers a piece of what happened between when she opened the box and how she got here. So mm-hmm. it's again very much an Alice in Wonderland concept, that part of it. But
yeah.
But the interesting thing for me is, like, this whole idea came because I saw. I'm going to be honest. I met a really, really, really pretty woman with, like, a Gorgon tattoo. I'm like, I can put Medusa in Alice in Wonderland. But then you start reading about these characters, right? Medusa is a Gorgon that honestly got a very raw deal, right? Mm-hmm. So I decided, like, in her case, for example, it's like, how can it, like, if she had to become a monster, like, this is a big part of the story that I haven't talked about, that it's going to be in, like, books 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. If she's becoming a monster, right? If she's becoming a monster, why would she, like, would there be a way that is unfair but would make her more sympathetic? And I thought of a way to do that. That would be really, really cool. What she actually is, like, what she.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did with Scylla, because Scylla, everyone thinks she's just like a sea monster, right? Like, she's an evil sea monster. She's not just people off ships. But if you, like, look deeper into her story, she became a sea monster because she was into the same god as Circe, and Circe was jealous and turned her into a sea monster. So I did the same thing. I did her origin story, like, how she became the sea monster, and tried to make it, like, sympathetic to, like, she's not just a monster. There's a reason why she became a monster, you know? And
yeah, well, it's just
the whole conflict between Circe and Scylla and Glaucus and how it all came about.
Well, like, and here's the thing about Alice, like, my Alice, like, her first villain is Jason. And you look at how Greek heroes are. You look at what Jason did to Medea, like, what he did to so many. He's called a hero because he's favored by the gods. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but if you actually look at everything he did, like, by what we define as heroic, noble traits, not so much.
No.
not so much.
Most of them aren't. When you, like, look deeper into it, you're like, this guy was, like,
scum.
Some shady stuff went on here.
Well, he's scum, right? That was the whole idea. It's like, you know, maybe the reason why Heracles abandoned ship was because, oh, absolutely, and I'm having so much fun because I gave him a very American perspective on winning, and I honestly work so well with him, so well with him. But the idea that you know, Jason is who he is just like, wow. Like, you know, he is this incredibly, and like, he's a great villain. And if you look at Greek mythology, if you look at it, like, cool things about it, the gods are all interesting fuck ups. All of them. They're all interesting fuck ups, right? The heroes and heroines. There are some heroines, not many, but there are some. They all have very interesting character arcs, and they almost all end in tragedy. Almost, not completely, but almost all of them do.
Psyche does not.
What?
Psyche.
No, Psyche doesn't. Right? There's a few that don't. Right?
Yeah.
But they're like the happy. There's a lot of. But at the end, like Odysseus isn't really an unhappy ending either. I think Odysseus is my favorite, like, character of all the Greek myth, because again, he was clever, he was smart, and he was capable, and a lot of stuff that he did, he was given this insurmountable obstacle, and one little by little he overcame them. Right? So it was like he's a really easy one to root for. Heracles is easy to work for too, except like at the very end he just lost his mind.
Yeah.
Which is like, if you look at that, it's a tragedy, right? But there's lots of that in Greek mythology. There's lots of tragedy. There's lots of Orpheus is super tragic, right? Super tragic. Medusa's tragic. Celia is tragic, right? But there's a lot of tragedy in Greek. So it's almost like it's an interesting, when you look at mythology, when you look at where these things come from and where they go. Hey, Ojeg, right? So when you look at Greek mythology, you can definitely see that. Like they were romantics at heart. Usually, I realized something. Happy endings aren't romantic. We don't. Happy endings are truly possible, but writing joy without making it sound fake is super hard. Most of us realize that big battles aren't necessarily where the victory is. The real victory, and I think the real thing about your heroism in general is, are you true to yourself no matter what obstacles are put in front of you? Right? And it's okay if you lose the battles. Like that's I think the more interesting thing. It's not even the battles you win, it's the battles you lose. It's okay to lose. Right? It's just the fact that you tried says an awful lot about you. Right? That's
you didn't just back up and say forget it. Yeah.
Right? That's the heroic thing. If they're right, if they're wrong, it doesn't matter. Like, there's a heroic, right? I'm true to myself. I stand up for what I believe in, and I fight. I knew how to fight it. I did the best I could, and that's like those kind of endings everybody can relate to, because we've all been defeated, and you can have I think the Greeks understood that big time. Like you can fight the fight, you can be all this, and you still lose.
Yep.
But that's okay.
But you also still win. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, some of the best young adult stuff. Like, we're talking about young adult stuff. Like, I love Laini Taylor. Like, when you get the, I want to say, of Gods and Monsters, the ending, the quote unquote the ending, wasn't exactly a happy ending either.
No, yeah, exactly. It was, and I'm really not a huge fan of happy endings in general, where everything ties up happily, because I don't feel like
it's
real.
Super hard to do that. It's super hard to do real. It's super hard to do and make it feel real, because
happy for now, maybe, but happy ever after is
well. It's not even like let me give you a good example. Like a really joyous ending, kind of a really, really joyous ending was, okay, like you mentioned Stephen King. I love the ending of Dark Tower. Like, not the epilogue, but when he gets to the tower.
Yeah.
Such a happy moment. It is super, super happy, because
There's another book I stole from my parents' bookshelf.
Everything. Yeah. But you also get like the ending for Suzanne and everybody else. Like, in another world, they're still alive. And that's a really cool, like, those are really, really good. And then the king goes, okay, I got one little thing left to tell you, but you're not going to like it. And we all kind of knew what that ending was going to be, but we just had to know, and it breaks you, right? But there were moments again. If you look at those you don't need to read that ending. He basically you really don't need to know he got there. That's really all that matters,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep,
That
he
was who he
achieved that thing.
Yeah, he got to the thing, and that was again. I genuinely cried when he talked about everything he lost right before the door opened. It was like I cried, but I also was like, he did it in spite of everything thrown in front of him. He did it.
He made it. Yeah.
That's real. Like that's a genuinely happy. You're crying not because because you understood what they went through to get it, and the world said, "Here you go." That's such a cool thing. That is such a cool
Everything
thing.
stands against, and then they manage to
Yeah.
persevere.
Yeah, and those endings, that one's a good one. The Wheel of Time's ending was also a really good one because it was like get to the end, you get to the whole thing. There were sad moments because again, it didn't feel like it cheated, right? You didn't feel like
Right.
it was a cheat. What you felt like is it was what it should be, battle of good and evil, and understanding that no matter how mighty evil may seem, it can always be beaten back. That is an amazing thing, and the reason. And my favorite line on this was that part where Rand was like, he was holding on to all these deaths that he felt were his fault. And then wherever realm he was fighting the Dark One, it's like, let us go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best line in that whole thing is, he let them all go and he let them be heroes. And that, boom.
Yep.
I turned. Boom. And it felt like that was the real battle. Everything else that happened didn't matter. But that was the battle. It's not that we have a thing against happy endings. It's the thing is, happy endings have to feel like they're earned.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If they're
exactly.
not earned, and very often you'll see this in a lot of books, like, well, we got to have a happy ending. It's like, no, you don't. Sometimes that's not the end. Sometimes it is the end, right? Sometimes actually that is the end. So the question then is the ending earned? Like, did they actually tell the story, have the heart to tell the story they were supposed to tell?
Mm-hmm. To make it feel like authentic.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than having that grand battle when nobody dies and there's no cost to anything, and you're like,
because it's not real.
I read all the way. Yeah, like, I mean, I don't want you to be George R. R. Martin and kill all your characters necessarily, but there has to be some kind of cost for what
George is a nihilist.
I know. I read the first George R. R. Martin book in 1998, and I was in high school, and that is how long I have been waiting for the series to finish. And I think at this point, it's never going to finish unless he calls like Robert Jordan and says, "Just finish it for me."
It won't be Jordan. It'll be Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, or Sanderson. That's what I meant. Yeah, wrong name. Because we were just talking about Robert Jordan. Yeah, call Brandon Sanderson.
No, like all you can do is look at the all you can do with people is look at the journey is the important thing. The story you're telling is the important thing. I'm not going to spoil if my Alice book has a happy ending because I know the ending, and three books down, I know it's two more books in the series, and I just know like the end is not. But the thing is, does she earn what she gets at the end of the story? That to me is the real thing. Everything else doesn't matter. Like everything else just really, really doesn't matter. What matters is, does she get what she's supposed to?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
My YA fantasy series, I had a lot of beta readers who were upset because they expected the main character to turn out to be this big hero who's saving the day, and she actually becomes kind of a gray area anti-hero who does like really questionable stuff. And everyone's like, but isn't she supposed to be the hero? And I'm like, it's only the second book. Like, there's a reason why she's, and the reason's in the book. If you read it, like, you can figure out why she's suddenly less of a good guy and more of a questionable character. But yeah, characters need arcs, and I don't think that people would enjoy it if I just had her happily, merrily going along, killing everyone to get what, like she needs some kind of, if you're going to kill people, you're going to have experience the darkness that comes after killing people, and your character is going to change from it.
Yeah. And some people, and again, and how people change. Again.
And some people loved it, but other people were like, what happened to Arianette? And I'm like, Arianette had to kill a bunch of people. Yeah.
Right? She had a lesson of how fragile life can be that a lot of people in this day and age do not have. Mm-hmm. And it hits you differently. Like by and large, like I said, we live in an age, we live in a still a very uncivilized age in a lot of ways, but in some ways, a lot of us don't have to see the struggles of poverty, the kill or be killed nature of just some of the
only on TV, which is so easy to be desensitized.
Well, it's so I loved what probably the most honest thing, and you never should go to a Joker quote for honesty, because honest to God, that usually is not a solution for sane people, right? But there's something that in the Dark Knight, when he was talking to Two-Face, he goes, what I noticed? All right, as long as it all goes according to plan, it doesn't really matter what happens, right? Even if the plan is horrifying. If I kill a gangbanger or a truckload store, like, these are legitimately horrible things, but it's all part of the plan. It goes, but then I threatened to kill just one old man. And when you sit there and think about it, right, he's right. It wasn't like, if I killed truckload, like, seriously, I killed a truckload of soldiers, dozens of people. It wouldn't even blink. But if tomorrow the mayor is targeted for assassination, or if tomorrow the president is targeted for assassination, now I'm not saying you should assassinate your president. That's not what I'm saying. But just the idea of just who, how you an established order of what is an acceptable way of life, whatever that looks like. Mm-hmm. You make people uncomfortable, and you can literally make a tragic paradigm shift. Just like that. He's right.
Yep.
Right? He's absolutely right with that. Like, like, first part's, in all honesty, the first one's more horrifying. Dozens of people are dying over just one. But the fact it's who, where, it's the concept of safety. If someone like that can be targeted for something, anybody can.
Anyone can. Yeah.
Right? That was the terror part of the Joker in that movie. It wasn't that he was going after, again, hypothetically speaking, one person versus a dozen. I mean, that makes, we don't see it that way at first. It's the fact that the real terror is, if I'll go after this guy, I'll go after anybody or anything. Yep. And you're not going to be able to predict it. You're not going to be able to see it coming. You're not going to, like, that's it.
So you can't prepare. Yeah.
That's terror. Like, that's how terror works. And that's what made it scary. But he's right. We will tolerate horrifying shit if it's normal.
Yep. It's true. Absolutely.
Yeah. That seems depressing. We should probably make this more fun somehow. Okay. How'd you get into editing? When did you find that, hey, I'm good at this and people like what I do?
Well, I was a creative writing major in college, an art history minor, which my father calls my degrees in underwater basket weaving, because that's how effective he thought my degrees were going to be at getting me a job in the future. And then after college, I wound up working in finance because I couldn't really find a job that paid money in my field. And I hated it, but I did it for 12 years anyway. And then I started on the side just through like Upwork and Fiverr and like other platforms, just doing that as like a side thing. And then I made a website. And then eventually I had enough clients that I was just kind of like, I bet I could stop doing this and make enough money to survive. So I put in my 2 weeks notice and I quit. And it's been working out. For a while I was ghostwriting, but I hate ghostwriting because then I don't have time to write my own stuff. And I feel like I'm like creatively drained. So no more ghostwriting for me. But
No, that's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, I just slowly acquired people who were like repeat clients, and yeah, and
So which one worked better for you, Upwork or Fiverr? Because I'm very curious. I actually have to choose a platform.
Fiverr was the platform I did the best in. I know people like to talk smack about Fiverr and how it's terrible, but if you do a good job on Fiverr and you manage to like get like to become a top rated seller, you can make really good money on there. And it's annoying to pay them 20% because that's the fee that they charge. But when you're first starting out, you don't have a lot of, it's a really good place to find clients. And then eventually, don't tell Fiverr. Those clients will send you an email or send you a Facebook message, ask if you could work outside Fiverr, and then you're not paying the fee anymore.
Yeah, which is totally, I mean, that again, I think deep down Fiverr knows this happens.
Yeah.
But for getting started, it's not a terrible deal.
Yeah, it's good to get started. It's a great place to find clients and find what you're good at. Like I got a couple like complaints about things at the beginning because I hadn't done it in years. I was working finance for years, and I realized like what my shortcomings were and stuff, and that helped me move past that.
That's part of the freelance process. Like I did it a year ago, and I started like again, just my connections I made helped me definitely get started and rolling. But what I tended to find was one of the hardest things the freelancer has to do is make the decision what to do. Like I like content writing, so I like writing about, and what I really like writing about is people. Like right now, I got an article I gotta finish about for a magazine, and then maybe I do more work for that magazine or I don't. But I've already handed in 2 articles for them, and they want more. So that's a good thing. That's a client. I do podcast stuff too. And that's who I am. Like that's what I'll be building myself towards. Build the website, keep pushing, and just keep doing my thing.
Yep. And eventually, like at first, I was doing really annoying stuff, like product descriptions and like edit my web content about my shoe store and like stuff like that. And I hated it because I'm not a nonfiction person. But I got like good reviews from those people, which led to me. Now I only do fiction. I won't edit nonfiction. If you ask me to edit a nonfiction project, I will direct you to my sister who only edits nonfiction.
Well, yeah.
So it's like a family affair.
Yeah, I'm like, for me, the other one I want to try to get into is editing comic books, because proofing comics right now in this age seems like a really good idea. But we'll see how that goes going forward. And sponsors for my podcast, and just slowly build what I'm doing.
Build the platform. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I built one, so now I just want to keep building it.
Well, exactly. Yeah, keep growing it, expanding it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much where I'm at, and I realize it's going to be it's probably going to be a few more months of up and down. But I'm also seeing it's like people want to support, people want to help. So and I hit my first 1,000 like download play week like 2 weeks ago. Last week was an anomaly just because of other things, but I mean I'm going, like I said, as long as I keep doing what I'm doing regular. Yeah, it'll come back around. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So. And there's like weeks where I look at the thing and I'm like, I have nothing. Like, what am I going to do this week? And then all of a sudden, randomly, someone's like, I have a 237,000 science fiction novel. And I'm like, give it to me.
Give it to me now.
Yeah, exactly. Give me. So it seems like every time I panic and think I'm screwed, the universe is obviously like looking out for me, because something pops up and I'm like, okay, I can pay the car payment.
Well, that's just it. Like that's the game, right? You start small and you keep working your way up.
Yeah.
Right. You keep working your way up. You just keep doing it. And
I started formatting too, which is kind of good, because if I have no editing work, I'm like formatting. I have Vellum, so it takes like no time to do, and nobody knows how to do it themselves. So there's like a big market for just formatting a book for Kindle and Apple Books and even paperback. So,
well, yeah, because again, it's design. It's basic design work is what that is. It's not hard, but also people don't want to be bothered. Hey,
yeah, and if you try to do it in Word, it's kind of like summoning demons. Like it's so annoying in Word because you have to like the page numbers get messed up when you want the chapter to move onto the right page, and
Word's a very special level of hell.
I just use Vellum. I put it in Vellum and it does it all for me, and then I give it to someone else and act like it took me a bunch of time to do.
Probably shouldn't just on the
My secret's out.
I have a machine do it for me. and I double check, make sure it works.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's exactly.
It makes sure it works. No, it's like
I still have to set up the headings and decide what dividers and all that stuff. But
it's like what I'm doing. I'm working with a client for podcasting. I built their stuff. It actually at this point, it's not a ton of work for me to do to keep it up to date. As long as I get content from her, I'm good. Right? Right. I can do whatever needs to be done, and it takes me. It doesn't take me very long to do it. But I've also done 630 episodes of the podcast. What you're paying for me is not so much you're paying for my time, but you're also paying for my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you're paying for. And yes.
I see that coming, and it's true.
Yeah. But again, that's a big part of freelancing, right? That's a big part of freelancing 101 is understanding how you can best serve. And that again, I think that honestly is the hardest thing for me. Podcasting, I learned to do some editing, not a ton, because I love comics, and like that's what I do, right? And that's who I am, and go from there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I feel really lucky because everything I'm doing is stuff that I enjoy doing. How many people can wake up and say, hey, I like what I do, and wake up whenever they want and say, hey, I like what I do. So I really feel like I'm lucky to be doing what I am doing.
Absolutely. No, like honestly, like finding.
I mean, I'd rather just be writing books, but since I don't have enough people writing my books yet, I'll do both.
Well, no, like what it comes down to, like honestly, when you get right down to it, is the fact that you work at something long enough, you get to go in that direction, and that's all it is. Really, you get right down to it. Like when you work something, like you get to go in those directions, and you get to see and you see results. You just see results, and that's a good thing. Like that's what we all shoot for.
Yep.
So let's talk your books. We've talked about editing and freelancing. We should probably talk your books. So obviously we talked about the books that say, I want to build worlds like these. So how close do you think you've come?
Wait, I missed that part. I'm sorry. A big truck drove by my house.
Okay. No.
Of course.
First you big trucks and your obnoxious sounding ways.
Yes.
No, what I'm going to say is, the fact is, like, you try to build words like Gone with the Wind and The Stand. And while we can talk about the pros and cons of The Stand another day, I love the best first 100 pages I've ever read. And like the best ending one of the best endings ever. No, not so much. That's another story for another pod. But building those worlds and telling it and getting that like result. Like, have you done that? Like, and how's like, do you feel like you've accomplished that with your books? And if you have, like, what book do you gush? But it's like, yes, this is awesome.
My first book, I tried really hard to do that, but it was also my first book. And looking at my first book, which is The Wood Witch's Daughter, I look at it and I'm like, there's things I could have done better here. Not better enough that I'm going to redo it, but better enough that I know next time to do it differently. Like, there's some inconsistencies with the world building, and it could probably use a little more. My friends joke that time travel is different in the Ethereal Realms because the timeline doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I actually put it in the book at one point. I was like, and time travel is different in the Ethereal Realms, because I realized that it made no sense, but I wasn't going to fix it.
I don't know.
But it was my first book, so there's a little flood. But the second one, which is called The Last Dreamer, I really think I kind of nailed the idea of making the world concrete and having a timeline that makes sense and having the cultures kind of more clear to the reader, because they're very clear in my head, but sometimes what's in my head doesn't convey straight to the page, you know? So I feel the second book is definitely a better book, which I feel like maybe normal, but I've also read some really bad second books, so I don't know. But the second book's a better book. And the one Tria Olinka, which releases on August 30th, that was the most fun book to write because I really liked immersing myself in. I did a lot of research, like we were talking about with like the Greek myths and trying to like make it. I mean, it's kind of a fantasy, but also keep it kind of historically accurate. So I feel like I did a good job of keeping that recreating the world that they should have been, that they would have been in. Like Psyche, I did Psyche and Eros and put her in her enchanted forest and her pool. And yeah, I think that's probably the one that has the strongest world building, even though it's based on real life, but it's not really based on real life because it's based on a myth. You know?
Well, who could, like, although, I mean, it's been thousands upon thousands of years, who knows? Maybe once upon a time, something like that was true. Who can say? I don't know. Right? I never. Here is sometimes the curse of being an author. This is the curse. You know how the sausage is made, right? So one of the things is like, well, we know this could all just be made up stuff by somebody that was really good at telling the story, and you're aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, there's that little bit of magic because we got so many missing pieces in history and in time. It's like, but what if it was true? At least like there's that little bit of magical. It's like,
Yep.
But what if? And that's
Yeah.
hard for an author to get into after a while because you see how stories are made and how they're constructed, and you see connections. Like I can see connections between Alice, Pandora.
Mm-hmm.
There are connections on how all those stories are told, right? Yep. They're essentially the same. They're the same thing. Curious woman causes calamity, right? The only difference is how the story evolves. Eve, downfall of man. Pandora, fall madness of man.
Yep.
And Alice, her own madness, but she has the opportunity to escape. So it's evolved a lot, right? But it's one of those things like you look and you say, okay, this is all the same story. Ergo, they're all fake. On the flip side, well, although we embellish some, or on the flip side, some stories are just based on things we've seen and experienced, right? That's real too. So it's like, so I like thinking there's a little bit of magic in the fact that on one real sense, these stories are true, even if the story we're telling isn't, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had, when I wrote Eros and Psyche, I really twisted some things around. Like I made Aphrodite like a side character who did asides, kind of narrating throughout the whole thing. And she's really like a wicked bitch. And I just made her basically, I was like, you know what? Like this, like beautiful, like haughty woman, she seems like she should definitely be trying to stand in both of their way this entire time. And when you look at the original myth, it doesn't really, I mean, she's pissy because Psyche tried to steal her thunder by like trying to be as beautiful as her or whatever. But I definitely like twisted it around a little bit and made Aphrodite a villain. And I'm sure some people are going to be like, but Aphrodite's my favorite goddess. Why'd you make her so mean? But it just felt right.
Honestly, Aphrodite is the original mean girl.
Yeah, exactly.
She's the original mean girl. Like she's totally like, if you look at her story, she is a bitch.
Yeah.
Because she cheats on her husband. It's like, oh my God, he's so like ugly. And like, look at me. I'm like the hottest chick ever. Right? And we talk about assholes. She bangs the god of war.
Yep. Yep. That's why I was like, she needs to be very petty and like very
like there's no.
It's interesting to read the myths and see what you pull out of them and like add to make that your character. Like,
okay, we can make fun of Kevin Sorbo's Hercules for days. But I actually thought they got Aphrodite right. That was the one I looked at. It's like, she would literally be like this. She would legitimately be like this.
Yep.
Petty, stupid, right?
Yep. Short-tempered. Yep.
Yeah, short-tempered. I'm the pretty girl, I'm the hot girl, and I'm the mean girl. I'm the cool one
Yep.
because daddy's all powerful. It's like, oh, there's so much you could play with. Like seriously, the mean girl from like you like it's there. It's right there. And all you gotta do
Mm-hmm.
is just like take it.
Absolutely. Well, I'm
Right?
glad that you recognize that, because I had someone else inform me how Aphrodite was not as bad, shouldn't have been as bad as I made her out to be, and it wasn't nice of
She
me. And I
did
was like, she was like,
well. It's
but it's interpretation. This was a person who was very, very
there's
into
like I said,
like
I,
Wicca and finding your inner goddess, and she thinks Aphrodite is her inner goddess. And I'm like, well, this probably isn't the book for you then. If you're looking for the book that puts Aphrodite in the best light, this is not it.
my inner guy. Never. Seriously, I poop. I wear pants they're like it. I'm not saying I don't have noble qualities to me, but the idea, I'm just a man, and I'm good with that. I just like.
Mm-hmm.
I think being just a human being is incredibly magical and powerful up on its own. I don't need to take the aspirations of other gods.
Yeah, I think that whatever energy we give out and take in, we don't need personified deities to
Well, it's
sprinkle it on us.
well. I mean, interestingly enough, like I really think that since we're talking about Greek, I'm always fascinated by this part because I actually don't think the United States calls itself a Christian nation, but if you really look at all the statues and all the stuff, if you really sit there and look at what is, if you look at it for what it's said, the United States is a Christian nation. But if you look at what's done, Statue of Liberty is basically a statue of Artemis. We have Greek and Roman iconography all over Washington D.C. A part of our leaders. We have an occult background in all of that stuff.
Yep.
And you go across the states, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at what's said, we're a Christian. This is a Christian culture. But if you look at what's done, right, it's like
Greco-Roman-esque.
Greco-Roman-esque is more accurate, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and if you look at billboards and as logos, like the traditional Greek word of logos, telling a story, our stories are all about these gods, these goddesses, these deities that existed from way back in the day, being reimagined and retold from our eyes. Like storytelling is literally everywhere, and a lot of it is the same personifications that have existed
Yeah.
for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah, there really aren't any new stories. There's new spins on stories, but most of them ultimately,
Same vibe.
have
Same
been done
vibe.
before.
Right, it's the same vibe, guys. This is like I said. This is why this is called "This is how the sausage is made." But what makes every story unique is how you tell it.
Yep. That's exactly. Like somebody I'm sure out there made Aphrodite a very sweet, beautiful, nice goddess, and that person who didn't like my mean Aphrodite should go read that book.
I mean, you could tell here's a fun Aphrodite story, right? She was a nice person until she was seduced by the bad boy, and then she became like this mean.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell that story. You could You could flip it. Maybe the God of War was a nice guy. I don't know.
I can't write any more stories right now. You're gonna give me ideas.
But again, it's just like you can take any idea and you can twist it in its own way, and suddenly, boom! It's you can add a twist to something that already exists. It's like, heck, like when the printing press first came out, it was the Bible. People would tell different stories about the Bible, like seriously, like I'm a believer, but even I know, like you could totally make fun of Mary and Joseph, like just the whole idea. Of you could totally make fun of that. And there were plays, I'm sure, that were being performed that made Joseph like a putz. Hey, Joe, maybe Mary's been around. And right, maybe have you considered that? I'm sure he did. Like, right.
Yeah.
Sure, that thought
How
crossed
did
his
he not?
mind a few times.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure it did. Right. So I mean, it's really easy to make Joseph like a putz, right? You could, right?
Yep.
There's other like we I mean that's like reinterpretations all the time. Snow White is probably like the perfect example of the dumb princess you will ever find in fiction, right? I
Yep.
was rooting for the queen to kill her after like the third attempt, right? I was. I'm not lying. I was, right? Because the first time it's like, oh, you evil bitch. The second time, she fell for it again. The third time, I can't feel sorry for you. I mean, just can't. And then
Yep.
the fourth time, and then after the fourth time, you're like, you fell for it again?
Again. Yep.
It's like, why? Right? Like I said, it's
I've gotten into this debate with friends about Daenerys Targaryen in the Game of Thrones. I don't think she's crazy. I think she has every right to burn down King's Landing.
Okay, so the problem with Game of Thrones was
I think it was a shitty ending, and I think the last season was horrible, but I'm still Team Daenerys.
Well, the thing is, King's Landing's going to get burnt.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's Daenerys that's going to do it. That's the like honestly, if you look at the character arcs that were in the novels,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she was going to do
It feels out of character for
because again, the way you this is one of those things.
If she is going to do it, I hope in the books it's more evolved in a way that it makes sense that she does it.
If she is the one that, why would she burn something she wants so badly? There has to be a really good reason for it. She's not going to want to burn it. She wouldn't care. Well, why create this army to do what it was well on its way of doing itself?
Mm-hmm.
She wanted it because it was rightfully hers. It's what she believed, right? It's what she believed. And she knew she couldn't just go in and take it, right? They weren't going to give it to her. She had to go take it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is there what reason she'd burn it from that position? There are a couple of reasons you could make the argument for, but you're not going. But the way they did it in game, reason why people are mad at Game of Thrones is that's not the expectation. Now, all
the character arcs were just tossed to the wind at the end.
Yeah,
I feel like.
No, that's it, and that was because it's a television show and they were done. And they didn't really want to put the same care and detail. They had to give you some kind of payoff, but honestly, at this point, and
Cersei dying in a rock slide was not acceptable. Arya should have killed her with her face on.
Well, here's the thing: you could see her downfall coming when you read when she was put in charge. She was literally surrounded.
Oh, but the rock slide was stupid.
Yeah. No. But if you want to make an argument for somebody that would have burned King's Landing to the ground, that's the bitch that would have done it. No question.
Absolutely.
No question.
I completely agree.
Right.
Because everything was falling down around her. Yep.
Well, she made it all fall down around her. Like that's the thing.
Of course, yeah.
You could watch everybody that was capable. She dismissed because she was afraid they'd take it from her.
To fill with cronies and
Yeah, and she surrounded herself with people that would never take it from her, but were how to put this. To quote a famous professional wrestler, an nonsensical douchebag yes man. That's what she surrounded herself with. So when the end came, when something bigger and stronger came to take it, because they're gonna take it now. Shrug, right? Like shrug. You saw it coming, right?
Yep.
So absolutely. I mean, her having an uneventful death actually makes sense. That all said,
I still hate it.
Yeah. No. But that all said, that's not what the audience wants. The audience wanted, right? There is I think the thing about Game of Thrones is the first book is especially good because Ned dies. And when you see it, it's so unexpected. It's not something that's done. It defied expectations. Well, now what happens? Well, there's a point in Game of Thrones where the bad guys are just devouring each other, which a rational person sooner or later comes to the conclusion that they had this guy that kept everything in balance, so that everybody could do their thing. And yeah, they might all be rotten people, but you know what? They towed the line. Well, now that that's not there, they're destroying each other. So they're actually doomed to lose. They're not going to win. Even if there is a winner, it's not going to be a win. There's
nobody.
Nothing left.
Yeah.
So that's not. So, and that guy might burn King's Landing. Because that makes sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense. That
makes sense. Yep.
Right. That's the thing. Like, there was a point with Martin's series. For me, it was before, when I realized that he's going for the darkest possible outcome. That's fine if that's what you want to do. But note this. There comes a point where going down that dark path ultimately devours the players that do it. And when everybody's getting devoured, nobody wins.
Yep.
You have to introduce, and this is just reality. This is the reality. You have to have, this is the argument for freedom and choice and nobility and trust and free, like all these higher virtues, they come back because people realize sooner or later, it's like, you cannot just devour each other forever unless you want absolutely
everything
nothing.
to become nothing.
Right? That's the only way that goes. And that's the only way the books can go. If the bad guys win, there's nothing left. And if that's the story you want to tell, cool. But it's not
quite as fulfilling. Yeah.
No. Jack Lawrence did a really fun take on it with his prince. I can't remember his name, but that prince was a monster at like 13. Like he was killing and raping but it felt Jack Lawrence's take on it is super interesting though, because he is the bad guy in a world with worse guys, and it's like, okay, it's fun, but as you get through the rest of the series, it's like it's not quite that cut and dry, and that guy pays for everything he's done. Like that, there's
repercussions, and
again, that's kind of the thing, right? So, I think we've done a pretty good job shitting on George R. R. Martin. Pretty good.
I don't know how we got back to Game of Thrones again. I think it was my fault.
It was King's Landing. You mentioned it, right? And we were talking about, like, the important thing to understand is an audience has expectations, and as a storyteller, you can defy them in really cool ways. But at some point, you still have to be conscious of those expectations, right? And you have to make sure it's like, from a story perspective, it's like, okay, I can have the dark bad guys keep winning and winning and winning and winning. Eventually, there'll be nothing left. They'll be not even them. They will have devoured each other off the stage. Okay.
Yeah, because they're going to turn on each other, and then that's
Well, again, it's a never-ending cycle. Then their successors will come in and devour. Like that's how it works. It never ends, and everything gets smaller and smaller. This big, giant, prosperous thing. It's like the snake swallowing its own tail. Eventually, there's no snake left. Right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. More Greek mythology right there, folks.
More Greek mythology.
But all in all, like that's the thing. It's like it's really cool when we look at stories. What we are doing is we are playing with those expectations, and we're connecting them. And the best stories connect them to the person telling them as well, and that's what everybody offers.
Yeah, that was my main intent. I wrote in first person from female perspectives because I felt like would be a very different take to hear how the female viewed the situation versus the third person omniscient narrator telling what happened. So I think I had a lot of fun writing it. I had a lot of fun getting into their heads.
Yeah.
Especially Scylla. I probably say her name wrong because I read it and don't say it.
It's your chef. That's your chef's. Okay, that's like.
Yeah, that's my chef. I'm fine on paper, but words never been as good as.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I made it really nice, and nobody expects a nice monster. So
Yeah. Well, you know,
it's a twist.
Most again, most of us that sometimes seem like monsters aren't monsters at all, and some of the nicest people. Some I think it's interesting today that I've read this in a lot of fiction. I see it in a lot of music. The monsters are cheered, and the so unquote unquote good guys, right, are actually the villains more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
I think society's rebelling against the status quo. I could be wrong, but I think we're at that point again.
Yep. That cycle.
It is what it is. I think though, Miss Kate, I think we've had a pretty decent interview here. What do you think?
I think so.
You think so? Okay. So do you want to advertise why you should do this both? Kate Seger, editor extraordinaire, right? Probably should talk about why her editing services are awesome and made of cheese, possibly made of cheese. I don't know. And then also her latest book, and when it went like you're launching a book, so you should be probably talking about that too, and where people can find you and your stuff.
Okay. Yeah, my latest book is called what is my book called? Tria Alinka. Which it's a trio. It's 3 Greek myths retold from female perspectives. It's Echo and Narcissus, Psyche and Eros, and Scylla's origin story. And it's available for pre-order on Amazon now, and it launches officially. Actually, the paperback is also available, which I didn't really want to happen, but I wanted to make sure that it worked. So it's secretly there to buy on Amazon. Shh, don't tell anyone else. But it officially launches on October 31st. And that's when the ebook will be available, because that's when I set up the pre-order. But the paperback's just hovering there. Yeah, and I had a lot of fun writing it. I think it's a really good book. And I also have a young adult fantasy series called the Ethereal Realms, which is kind of Sarah J. Maas-ish in that it has fae and fairy courts and power struggles between the courts, and a girl who gets transferred from her nice human world into the midst of these raging battles between fairies and elves. And the first book of that is called The Wood Witch's Daughter, and the second one is called The Last Dreamer, and the third one I'm going to say is going to be out in November, but that's only written in like pencil. It's not written in stone, but sometime soon. Yeah, and if you're looking for me on social media, everything is at Kate Seger Author. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram,
awesome.
All that stuff.
Awesome. Well, folks, that was this episode just joshing. And for the rest of this week, I think I took it easy on myself this week. I'm going to see here. I have Derek Bourne on Thursday and Shawnee O on Friday. I'm actually giving myself a little bit of a nicer week as I kind of try to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do with myself for the next little bit. But for those of you guys, yeah, well, you gotta do. I did 6 days of streaming last week, and so taking an extra day here is all right. But for everybody watching, listening, thank you for watching and listening. I'll see you guys on Thursday. If you got on Twitch, hit the follow button if you guys want to do that. On YouTube, I have my channel. Hit like and subscribe there. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys Thursday. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.